Hello there, it's Tania Gabrielle, Wealth Astro-Numerologist. Welcome to Star Codes. This is our weekly podcast where we look at a major event in the heavens, in the stars and numbers, to help us navigate the energies in the best way possible. So today we're going to cover a really exciting opposition between Jupiter and Mercury. Now, usually Mercury passes by any planet within 2 to 3 days and it's over, right? The transit doesn't last long because Jupiter really moves very fast. It's the fastest moving planet after the moon. But this time, Mercury is going to station retrograde on September 9th. So we have an opposition to Jupiter, which was exact on September 2nd and is going to last 6 weeks versus 2 to 3 days, which is really unheard of and actually quite rare. So this 6-week period is obviously very potent. Mercury will never be more than 8 degrees in separation from Jupiter in terms of the opposition, and that means it's going to be stunning. So not only is this event going to last 6 weeks, but it began at 6 degrees. Mercury in Libra at 6 degrees and Jupiter in Aries at 6 degrees. So in numerology, the number 6 is very beautiful. It is all about home and family and nurturing, abundance, taking on responsibilities as like a parental figure or mentor figure, and love. It is the number of love. So abundance, love, nurturing. And what makes it even more enhanced is that September in 2022 is a 15 universal month. 9 plus 2 plus 0 plus 2 plus 2 adds up to 15. And 15, 1 plus 5 equals 6 as well. So we have 6 weeks, both planet at 6 degrees, and September's 15/6 universal month. So lots of abundance, love, and nurturing, mentoring this month. Now, because Jupiter is very much about joy and seeing the big picture and being optimistic, you want to guard against over-optimism as well, because you don't want to overestimate your abilities, overestimate your contributions at this time. At the same time, with Mercury, the mind, and Jupiter all about what you have faith in and what you trust, we have a magnification of your intuition. Jupiter also governs higher learning and wisdom. So we have this amazing ability to see the big picture. So with the opposition, in order to keep it in balance, in check, when we see the big picture, it then gives us a direction on where to move next. So it's very important to start with the big picture first and then sense which direction to take, not vice versa. Now, Libra and Aries, where the opposition begins, are cardinal signs, and cardinal signs always begin our seasons. So they indicate new beginnings. And so your beginnings are it's really important with this code for them to arise from the heart, not an intellectual kind of thought stream process that takes you to a decision. This is not about that. This is really an inspirational decision that arises in a beautiful way from your heart. Because when you connect to your heart, you literally have multidimensional information. You cannot get that from your mind. So when Jupiter and Mercury come together, where Mercury governs the lower mind, and Jupiter really is about wisdom, which is sourced from source. And so when they come together, you really realize that you are an aspect of the divine. The divine is your origin. So decide what you want to feel first and then create it. Basically, the feeling, the frequency that you tune into is going to direct you vibrationally through your intuition on what you want to create. And this will help you engage with the world in a very bird's eye view way, so you don't get pulled into the drama rather than being caught up in the drama and then get stuck and get paralyzed by the drama. So start there, trust what comes through, because the rest is going to take care of itself. So trusting your intuition is when you have that moment of clarity. It's fleeting, and that awareness is within yourself. It sort of feels different than anything else that you could think about. And you do sense that, right? It's so obvious. This actually feels light and delightful, and it's very subtle, but it's always accurate. And that is your intuition. You can ask your intuition a question. You can ask your guides a question and sit for a minute and see if you get an insight. Or you might get images, or you see a billboard or a license plate, or you overhear a conversation and that addresses your question. Or you're drawn to a book, open it, and there it is. You might see repeated numbers. You literally can do this, asking your guides, asking your intuition a question at any time of the day, and that gives you a new direction. And you just basically follow the internal signs and the external signs that resonate with your heart. Now, the opposition energy is very important to look at here, because oppositions are always there to help us see where we are looking at things from a polarized way and needing to bring that polarization into balance, into harmony. So we experience oppositions once a month with the full moon. When the moon is full, the sun and moon are opposite each other. But now there is this 6-week event, this rare event between Jupiter and Mercury. And Mercury is about what you believe, what you trust in, the energy that uplifts you, that expands you. And Mercury is about how you think things through and how you communicate what it is that is coming through, whether it is from the mind or from the heart. So when they are in opposition, you are very focused on those things that are polarized within you. And so it's very important in this 3D world, which is so polarized, to come back to here and know that no one is inherently good or inherently bad. There is no such thing, because in reality, everything is neutral. It is just a seed from which creativity flows. So everything really doesn't have a polarized value to it, other than what you assign to it. And that's really the key. What you assign to it is the perspective that you currently have. And this is also part of the universal structure. In the universal structure, yes, there is light and dark, but we don't have to perceive that as good and bad, right? The dualistic nature of light and dark is there to help get us noticing one or the other and making choices about which energy we want to partake in. But judging that choice is really where we get off track. That is the perspective part. So everything has a polarity. And the second that we play that game of being polarized, our perspective is all about good and bad. And the higher we go up in the universal structure, meaning the third dimension versus the fifth dimension, for example, the less polarized your perspective is. So here in 3D, we're extremely polarized. We have, light and dark. We have black and white, but then we have so many shades of gray in between. And in the higher dimensions, this is all about the earth ascending in a way to a way of life that is less black and white, because in the higher dimensions, you have far less shades of gray. There's not a lot of extreme energy in that higher dimensional perspective. Whereas for us, and we're now growing out of it, right, as we speak, it is very, very different. So this is all about, this opposition right now is really helping us, Mercury and Jupiter, to let go of some extreme polarization, how we think about things, Mercury, what we believe, Jupiter. So speaking of beliefs, we sometimes have a perspective that two different states of being are in opposition to each other. Case in point, money. There's just so many perspectives on money that are negative, and that people who are wealthy are not to be trusted. So then you also have a sense that you want to do something beneficial for the world. You want to be a good person. You want to support others. And those two beliefs may not necessarily, in a polarized world, go together. Because if you believe that money isn't spiritual, that people with money are inherently, there's something wrong with them, that they're dark, whatever it is you're thinking, then how can they be good? So that then always, it always reflects back to you, that you can't be abundant and be a good person. So let's look at that, because if you allow one to take precedent over the other, which in a neutral universe, there is no precedent over the other. There's no such thing. It just is, right? But if you believe that, then one has to be better than the other. One has to be greater than the other. So being good, for example, would be considered in this polarized belief system better than being abundant. And then you see that reflected back to you, right? Because you actually then will struggle if you are dealing with money issues, because you feel that being good is more important than having enough money, to support yourself without worry. So if you don't believe that one takes precedent over the other, you will basically see that reflected back to you as well, because there won't be a collision, there won't be an opposition, a fight between these two beliefs, these two perspectives. And then there's nothing blocking you from being abundant and good. Nothing. And you can do this with any belief. You can do this with anything that seems contradictory to you. And just go back to the universe is neutral. You are a being of light, and that is who you are. That is it. The rest is just playing in this third dimension and learning about it and wearing a costume that you've acquired in order to play the game. But that's all it is. It's not reality. It's not the real universe. Remember, there is light and dark. We do have the duality. The duality is there for us to see and benefit from understanding both light and dark. But it's as soon as you give it a certain belief system, a certain perspective, you are in the game. You're not seeing the value of staying out of the polarization itself. So it's to acknowledge the polarization without partaking in it, and then that leads to judgment. Then we start judging people as good and bad. And that really is where the game can get complicated, because it all reflects back to us, good and bad within us. So when you start aligning this during this Jupiter-Mercury opposition, without that kind of judgment, without that perspective and belief system, your reality is going to shift in a big way. And then you will be able to help others that have that limiting belief as well. And that's really the key, is to see with Jupiter and Mercury in opposition that we only polarize in terms of our perspective, in terms of our beliefs. That actually we are all one, and there's no such thing as one being good and the other being bad. We all go through our experiences that our soul has chosen for us in order for us to grow. So there can't be any judgment of that. It doesn't even make sense to criticize a choice that has been made in order for growth to happen. Now, does that mean that when we see dark, we're going to partake in that darkness and wallow in it and participate in it? Absolutely not. It just means we are not judging it. We're just seeing it for what it is, without the you are good and you are bad judgment attached to it. And that's really a big one, because the way we're raised, as you, I'm sure, realized in our cultures, with religion, with education, with social norms, with politics, everything is created in a way to perceive that there is division between light and dark. and you want to join one and not the other. And you're leaving half of you behind if you do that, because you are naturally sleeping at night and awake during the day. That's a good example. You partake in the system of, in the polarization. You partake in it. It's just your perspective on it that now is shifting as we move from this very limited 3D experience. So this opposition between Jupiter and Mercury is absolutely powerful, magnificent, and it's going to change your life. And so what I suggest you do is, before you go into the belief that when you engage with a person or a story or a situation that it is good or bad, is that you do so without judgment. You can see the light and dark, but you allow it to live and don't engage in trying to change it, trying to manipulate it, joining the drama, being overcome by it in some way. And then you are literally at one with that. You're a divine being of light, and everyone else around you is a divine being of light. That's really the key. That is who you are. So I wish that for you during these 6 weeks. The actual opposition goes all the way through October 12th. And like I said, it began September 2nd. And Mercury goes retrograde in between. This is obviously why it's taking so long. So that's from the 9th until, I think, early October. So I, for one, am rooting for you and for me and everyone that we start aligning without perspective and allow our reality to shift without judgment, without belief, right? And that will shift us internally. And then we can also help others with limiting beliefs. You want to get out of that limitation mentality, just like with the abundance versus the good person, right? That's very limiting. That's not helpful. I mean, that's just a game that's been created in your mind that literally has to go so that you can truly expand as you are a divine being of light. So enjoy that, and enjoy your star code as well. You have a very beautiful star code that shows your purpose. It shows your destiny through your birth name, your birthday, the numbers in your astrology birth chart. And I've created a free masterclass at starcodeclass.com. Have a look at it. You just need 90 minutes to just partake in who you are at soul level. And it's just so much fun. And this class really helps you move away from non-judgment of others, because when you look at their purpose, their shadow side, look at what their name means, their birthday means, their astrology chart, you literally accept them with unconditional love. And that's really where it's at when we want to live a beautiful, harmonious, balanced life. So enjoy that free masterclass at starcodeclass.com. Have a beautiful week, and I'll see you in next week's Star Codes podcast. Lots of love.